Have you ever wondered if those colorful little candy specks on top of cakes and donuts might be hiding a much bigger story? They're called sprinkles by some, hundreds and thousands by others, and maybe even jimmies in certain corners of the world. On the surface, these tiny sugar decorations seem so innocent, just bright bits of sweetness tossed onto pastries for fun. But if rumors and behind-the-scenes stories are to be believed, sprinkles may be one of the most unexpectedly dramatic confections in the entire dessert industry. Once you dig deeper, you'll find tales of mysterious ingredients, factories teetering on chaos, fish ponds turned into mixing tanks, and even whispered rumors about forced labor in hidden bubblegum mines. Of course, at the core of it all lies one simple question. How are cake sprinkles actually made? Most people picture a gleaming factory line. Sugar, colorants, a machine that spits out perfect little rods. But the real process and the comedic disasters that sometimes accompany it prove that there's far more than meets the eye. Before you spoon a handful of rainbow toppings onto your next sundae, buckle up for a wild journey that starts with sugar and ends somewhere between conspiracy theories and hush-money rumors. This is the surprising and occasionally bizarre truth behind your favorite sweet garnish. While modern-day sprinkle factories are churning out candy by the ton, sprinkles themselves trace back to 18th century France. Early confectioners discovered that sugar, when crystallized into tiny bits, made a perfect decorative flourish for pastries. These delicate dots enhanced the visual appeal of baked goods in an era when color on a dessert table was a rare luxury. From there, the idea spread across Europe and eventually across the seas, evolving into multiple forms. The British famously, or infamously, call them hundreds and thousands, a name that sometimes sparks confusion when you're left with only a measly few in the bottle. Meanwhile, in the United States, you might hear the term jimmies, apparently named after some unknown individual rumored to have played a role in distributing them for charity events. Or so the story goes. Even if you prefer the all-purpose labels sprinkles, the variations speak to a larger truth. These little decorations have entwined themselves into culinary traditions worldwide, each region adding its own twist of culture and language. But that historical glance is just a stepping stone. It's time to see where the real magic and the real mess happens. In any modern sprinkle operation, the process kicks off in a vast production room that feels simultaneously whimsical and industrial. Large stainless steel mixers line the floor. Each is designed to combine sugar, cornstarch, or another binding starch, water and colorants into a pliable dough. Despite the sleek appearance, rumors suggest that the actual day-to-day routine can be equal parts comedy and chaos. One of the strangest things about sprinkle making is the persistent story that factories don't use standard metric or imperial measurements. Instead, they measure in so-called tiny plastic buckets. Need more sugar? That's 3 buckets. A dash of colorant? That's a half bucket. A worker known as Strong Marcus might heave armfuls of these buckets into a gaping mixer, each labeled in a way only the veteran employees understand. To an outsider, it looks like a child's cooking experiment on a grand industrial scale. While sugar and starch form the dough's skeleton, sprinkles need color. That's where liquid dyes come in. Some are derived from natural sources, like pomegranate skins for a subtle red, while others are wholly synthetic, with cryptic names like liquid black or FD&C yellow Mer5. Allegedly, the wildest rumors involve mood enhancers or mild narcotic powders slipping into these colorants, though official statements always deny such claims. Whether these controversies are just tall tales or actual hush-hush practices remains an open debate. Despite the sugary foundation, you can't just blend everything at room temperature. The environment inside a sprinkle factory is often kept uncomfortably warm, around 103 degrees Fahrenheit. Workers are said to lug those tiny plastic buckets around in a constant light sweat, because if the mixture cools too much, lumps form and ruin the texture. In the best-run factories, modern climate control systems keep the dough pliable and the staff relatively comfortable. In less advanced operations, rumors float of exhausted employees fanning themselves in a haze of sugar dust, hoping to avoid meltdown, both literal and figurative. Once the dough mixture reaches the perfect consistency, somewhere between thick batter and soft clay, it's time for the real transformation. This step typically involves a machine that extrudes the dough into thin ropes. Think of it like a pasta maker, but instead of noodles, you get countless tiny rods that will eventually become the sprinkles we recognize. Occasionally, something goes horribly wrong with the colorant or the dough, resulting in a scene that employees have nicknamed pink spaghetti. Instead of forming neat, solid rods, the mixture emerges in long, stringy clumps that look disturbingly like bubblegum noodles. When this happens, workers scramble to fix the ratio of dry to liquid ingredients. Some toss in extra powdered sugar, hoping the mixture will stiffen up. Others add more fat chips, praying the texture becomes rod-friendly. If they fail, the entire batch might end up in the discard bin, though rumors persist that certain factories try to salvage it, reblending the pink spaghetti with new dough to avoid losing money. Of course, official spokespeople promise that any tainted or ruined batch is thrown out for safety. Yet stories abound of forklift pallets quietly hauling suspicious pink barrels to a back room, where nobody but the highest level managers know the final fate of that sticky disaster. Whether these are just tall tales or something more sinister, nobody's confirming anything. At the very least, the repeated mishaps lend an air of slapstick unpredictability to the world of sprinkle making. No conversation about how sprinkles are made would be complete without the comedic rumor that one factory, no one can agree on which, converted a koi fish pond into a mixing tank. According to some versions, the pond was conveniently located near the production floor, so management decided to co-opt it for large-scale ingredient blending. The koi fish were swiftly removed after they began exhibiting pre-diabetic symptoms, a testament to all the sugar swirling in their watery home. Not long after, the story goes, a sewer line burst, flooding the same area. Conspiracy theorists argue that the next day's sprinkles had a suspicious odor and questionable coloring, but official statements swore up and down that every contaminated speck was disposed of. Naturally, this fiasco is peppered with jokes about fish-flavored sprinkles or chocolate koi bites. Most likely, it's an exaggerated retelling of a minor plumbing disaster. But the rumor persists, possibly because it's too entertaining to let go. The image of goldfish-eyed employees wading around in sugar-laced water is the kind of comedic gold that sticks to the public's mind, much like sugar granules on a donut. When the extruded dough isn't sabotaged by pink spaghetti syndrome, those tiny rods still need their signature uniform appearance. Factories typically employ large rotating drums called tumblers, where the rods are cut into small pieces. As the rods tumble, automated blades slice them into the perfect length. This is where color uniformity really matters. If the dough was dyed inconsistently, you'll get a mishmash of half-tone sprinkles ranging from pastel to deep neon in the same batch. To keep sprinkles shiny and help them hold their shape, most factories spray a confectioner's glaze or edible wax into the tumbler. This adds that polished finish that glints on top of frosting. The glaze can be made from naturally occurring waxes, like carnauba wax, or it might include chemical stabilizers. Some critics argue that too much of this coating produces a waxy mouthfeel, while defenders insist it's the only way to prevent sprinkles from clumping and disintegrating. All the while, employees guard the tumbler to ensure no foreign objects or overzealous coworkers end up in the batch. Perhaps the most infamous rumor circulating about sprinkle factories involves a worker often referred to as Peter. Allegedly, there's a strict rule against unnecessary contact between human hands and the product. Hygiene protocols and industrial standards demand minimal direct handling. Yet Peter, so the story goes, cannot resist reaching into the swirling masses of sprinkles. Witnesses claim to have spotted him sifting them through his fingers, sampling them by the handful, or even diving elbow deep into a newly glazed batch just to feel the texture. Whenever Peter shows up, managers panic. Shouts of "Stop, Peter, stop!" supposedly ring out as employees rush to minimize the contamination. Some claim entire shipments were discarded because he wouldn't keep his hands off the brand new, freshly tumbled rods. The comedic tragedy of it all has turned him into a mythical figure, with online forums speculating whether he's still employed or banished to do menial tasks away from the main factory floor. True or not, This anecdote underscores how precarious quality control can be when even a single impulsive individual decides to break protocol. Once the rods are cut, glazed, and hopefully left untampered by rogue hands, it's time to sort them by size and shape. Modern sprinkle factories often use vibrating conveyor belts or specialized sifting machines that separate any oddly shaped or too long pieces. In some cases, there's also a color sorting step, ensuring that each container has the perfect hue distribution. This process is oddly reminiscent of panning for gold, only instead of shining metal flecks, you get red, blue, pink, or chocolate confetti. One particularly amusing rumor states that certain factories place their sprinkles in a climate chamber dubbed a typical day in San Francisco, implying it's designed to replicate the city's foggy, humid conditions. This environment supposedly helps the sprinkles settle at just the right moisture level before packaging. It might be nothing more than an inside joke among factory employees, but it adds another layer of quirky detail to the sprinkle-making lore. Finally, the sprinkles are funneled into bottling machines where precise jets of air help distribute them evenly into plastic or glass containers. Then, the capping machine seals each bottle before a labeling system prints out the brand name, flavor, if any, and nutritional information, or possibly disclaimers about questionable content. In comedic tales, the labels warn buyers that the product was excessively fondled, but in reality, the disclaimers are more mundane, typically listing ingredients and possible allergens. Despite the routine procedure, rumors claim that in certain novelty batches, employees sneak in shapes resembling questionable body parts or tiny hidden messages. Grainy photos circulate online, showing lumps in the shape of a male organ or suspicious outlines that might depict cartoon characters. The cynics dismiss it all as a trick of the eye, pareidolia with sugar lumps. Others remain convinced that rebellious workers occasionally slip a few special shapes into the line for laughs. There's no concrete proof, and official statements naturally deny any such practice. Still, the rumors persist, fueling the notion that sprinkles might hold more secrets than we'd ever suspect. In the realm of bizarre confectionery legends, none is wilder than the claim that certain workers are exiled to bubblegum mines. The story goes that whenever a batch of sprinkles is ruined, like the dreaded pink spaghetti fiasco, managers assign the employees at fault to dig sticky lumps of old gum out of subterranean vaults. The harvested gum is then allegedly reprocessed into new candy experiments. Critics say this story is just an exaggerated employee joke, a metaphorical way of saying backbreaking labor on the worst tasks. Yet for every skeptic, there's someone else pointing to ominous references in employee testimonies about hidden sub-basements, forbidding hallways, and hush-hush expansions that no one outside upper management can enter. It's the perfect recipe for a conspiracy theory. Giant candy makers with labyrinthine underground passages, punishing staff in comedic but horrifying ways, reusing bubblegum for who knows what. Real? Probably not. Entertaining? Absolutely. And in the swirl of speculation that surrounds sprinkle factories, it's exactly the kind of tall tale that continues to captivate everyone's imagination. While these comedic and sometimes alarming rumors swirl, the modern sprinkle market marches forward. Many brands experiment with offbeat flavors, bacon sprinkles, coffee sprinkles, sprinkles that boast mood-lifting extracts, and even chili-infused sprinkles for daring eaters. Each new flavor sets off a mini arms race, with rival companies trying to capture the next big trend. Behind the scenes, corporate buyouts and hush money settlements are whispered about, fueling speculation that big players aim to monopolize the rainbow topping market. At global trade shows, competing sprinkle makers put on cheerful displays to outcharm buyers and consumers. They showcase advanced packaging, innovative shapes, and curated color blends, all the while exchanging polite smiles with their rivals. Secretly though, rumor has it they keep a close eye on each other's recipes, searching for any sign of formula theft or packaging sabotage. No one wants to be that brand losing ground because the competition discovered a cheaper, brighter, or longer-lasting method first. Meanwhile, regulatory bodies sporadically descend on factories for inspections. The more unscrupulous players dread these visits, worried that their missteps, like reusing questionable batches or ignoring certain hygiene protocols, may be exposed. Stories occasionally surface of a last-minute scramble, where factories allegedly hide stacks of mislabeled buckets or bribe testers to overlook suspicious lumps in the mixing vats. As always, official denials follow, but each new rumor adds another layer of intrigue to the already complicated sprinkle tapestry. Even with controversies old and new, the world's appetite for bright, crunchy toppings shows no sign of fading. Ice cream parlors pour them on sundaes by the fistful, bakers rely on them to add color and whimsy, and social media feeds brim with photos of confetti cakes. In a sense, sprinkles fulfill a universal longing for celebration and childlike joy. They turn a plain vanilla cupcake into a mini spectacle, or a simple donut into a rainbow parade. Yet in the background, the conversation keeps evolving. Some health-conscious critics question the sugar content and the dyes used in sprinkles, pushing for more natural or organic alternatives. Others remain fascinated by the comedic underbelly of sprinkle production, devouring every rumor about koi ponds and bubblegum mines like it's an episode of a favorite soap opera. As for the factories themselves, many are diversifying into new shapes: stars, hearts, letters, and adjusting formulas to create healthier versions. Though whether sugar-laden confetti can ever truly be healthy is up for debate. There's also a push to create environment-friendly packaging. Biodegradable jars and minimal plastic usage are slowly gaining traction, at least in the eyes of certain boutique brands. Larger manufacturers, however, balk at the cost and practical challenges. And so the brand wars expand to sustainability, with each faction trying to appear more responsible than the rest, while still churning out mountains of tiny colored candies every day. Sprinkles might be small, but the stories and speculation surrounding them are anything but. They've come a long way from their humble origins in 18th century France, evolving into a global staple for desserts of all kinds. They've also accumulated a rich lore, part factual, part comedic rumor, fueled by talk of fish ponds turned mixing tanks, unstoppable employees who keep touching the product, forced labor in mythical bubblegum mines, and fiascos that turn candy rods into gooey spaghetti. Behind the bright packaging and colorful confetti is an industry rife with more drama than most people imagine. Whether it's the comedic meltdown of a sewer breach or the serious rumors of questionable additives, there's always a fresh tale to tell. Some stories stretch belief to the breaking point, while others might contain a kernel of truth overshadowed by comedic embellishments. Even so, these anecdotes serve as a reminder that the simplest things in life, even the toppings on your cupcake, can have surprisingly complex backstories. So the next time you're decorating a birthday cake or shaking sprinkles onto ice cream, take a moment to consider the journey those tiny bits of sugar traveled. Think about the mixing vats that must stay at sweltering temperatures, the tumbling machines slicing dough into perfect rods, the frantic attempts to salvage a pink spaghetti catastrophe, and the devoted or deranged employees who keep everything running, even when they're not supposed to lay a single finger on the candy. You might laugh at the idea of a fish pond turned mixer or a bubblegum mine deep beneath a factory, but you'll also appreciate the sense of whimsy and tradition these myths bring. In the end, that's the real power of sprinkles: to add color, delight, and a dash of mischief to life's simplest moments. Beneath the sugar coating lies a tapestry of tall tales and hidden drama, a swirling blend of fact and fiction that only makes those cheerful little specks more intriguing. And maybe, just maybe, that's the sweetest part of the story. Sometimes the smallest details hold the biggest surprises, inviting all of us to take a second look before we take our next bite.